I am just so pleased to introduce Beth to you tonight. Beth is the editor of Alive Now and Weaving's Journal and does many other things at the Upper Room. I couldn't number them all tonight. We're here because Beth's most recent book, Celtic Blessings, Christ Beside Me, Christ Within Me, has come out recently, and we are excited to share the contents of this book with you. So our plan tonight is to give you a taste of the surprises you'll find in Beth's most recent books. Those who know Beth know that the most important critter in her life is a certain Jack. So do you want to tell us anything about Jack, Beth?
Jack the Scotty, and he's watching from home, although I don't know if he would have been dexterous enough to get into the new room, but he can watch it later.
Well, we are glad that you're here tonight, especially those of you who have stayed with us through this process. And we're about to talk about Beth's book. So Beth, tell us how you want us to launch tonight.
Yeah. First of all, I just want to say thank you so much. I was talking to several of you on Facebook as we were waiting for the technical issues to get cleared up, and you are an amazing group of people. I'm so grateful for you.
We're clapping for you.
So I just wanted to start with a song and to acknowledge that God is in this place. God is with each of us wherever we are. So let's be in prayer. Christ behind us, Christ before us, Christ beside us, Christ within us. O Christ be in this place, O Christ be in this place. And Christ is here in this place, and wherever you are, we heard that you're eating sausages and corned beef and cabbage and drinking tea,
and we've got ourselves some shortbread biscuits right here.
That's right. So I don't know if we're going to have our map come up.
We are wondering where you all are entering in from tonight. And Scott, are you able to show that map tonight?
All right. Well, I've been hearing from you about where the books are, and they are indeed all over the world. And some of you may be somewhere else besides the United States, but I figured that most of you would be right here in the United States. So we're going to bring up a map of the U.S., and if you are not in the U.S., why don't you put your arrow in the ocean? But Scott is going to tell you how to tell us where you are tonight.
Thank you very much, Beth. Okay, so this is how it's going to work. Go to the top left of your screen, and you'll see an arrow next to the letter T. Click on the arrow, and it should be highlighted in gray so you know it works. And then click anywhere on the screen and let us know where you're located. So just click on the arrow and click on the screen with your mouse.
Each of the red dots that you see pinned here represents a place where one of Beth's books has been shipped. I'm sure there are many e-books that are out there that we can't see marked on the map, but it's fun to see where you all are and beginning to see the arrows pop up indicating where you're joining in from tonight.
Oh my goodness, look at that.
They're popping up all over.
And we have an international or two, so happy about that.
Wonderful.
You guys are awesome.
Well, continue to keep adding your arrows and letting us know where you're joining in from tonight. This is great, Beth. I really thought so many people would give up on our technological issues, and look at how many people are still here with us. I love it.
I'm about to do shout outs, there's my childhood friend Cindy Griffin. Hello, I see you.
Well, Beth, you know, I'm thinking about what parts of our story we want to share tonight, and I really would like us to start with what it is about Celtic Blessings that prompted you to write the book in the first place. What's the story sort of behind the story we're about to tell in this book itself?
Sure. I was invited a couple of years ago to lead worship for an event that was a 5-day academy for spiritual formation on the topic of Celtic spirituality. And I realized at that time I didn't really know what Celtic spirituality was. And so I started reading and learning about that. And I was reading the writings of Irish philosopher and poet John O'Donohue, who said that we are all made of clay, and the clay that makes us up has a memory. And I realized that part of my clay came from my ancestors who lived in County Clare, Ireland. And as I began to write blessings as a form of prayer, blessings as a spiritual practice, I realized that that clay lived in me and that was passed down to me from my grandpa, Tom, whose mother was Irish. And as I wrote the blessings, I began to realize that I was already living that way, that Celtic way, a way of gratitude, a way of noticing what is happening in the moment, thanking God for the things that are right in front of me that I might be taking for granted at other times. So one of the concepts of Celtic spirituality is pilgrimage. And Esther DeWall has a book. It's a great book on Celtic spirituality. And she calls the word peregrinano.
Can you say that again, Beth?
Peregrinano.
Peregrinano. Okay.
Right.
First big word we'll learn tonight.
Yes.
Go ahead.
She said that it's almost untranslatable, but it means we've translated as pilgrimage. And it's illustrated in Celtic lore by a story from the 9th century of 3 Irish Christians who set out in a coracle.
And a what?
Yes, a coracle, which is a round boat with no oars.
Interesting.
So these guys, I guess they were probably guys, they set out from the Irish shore in a coracle, a round boat with no oars, and they floated on the sea for 7 days. And they ended up on the shore of Cornwall, England.
So they head out in a round boat with no oar,
right?
Basically casting themselves onto the sea.
Yep.
With the hope and faith that God would send them where God wanted to send them.
Yep.
Is that what you're saying?
Yep. God sent them to Cornwall, and they were taken before the king, King Alfred, and he said, "What are you doing? Where did you come from, and where are you going?" And they said, "We stole away because we wanted for the love of God to be on pilgrimage, though we didn't know where." And isn't that the way life is so many times? We set out in these round boats with no oars, and we don't know where we're going. We're trusting God to get us where God wants us to go. And often we end up where we never intended to go, but we find that God is right there with us. And this reminded me so much of the story of my grandpa's family, the Wilsons, who set out on their own pilgrimage. And they were in South Africa, and they took a trip. They were intending to get back to South Africa. They went to England and Ireland and ended up in Oklahoma and never, ever got home. Their little coracle took them from South Africa to Oklahoma, and here I am. Here I am because of that. So my grandpa's story is woven into this book. As I began to write the stories, as I began to write the blessings in the book, I realized that he was right there with me. And I grew up hearing him tell these stories. He was a wonderful storyteller. And so I wove in his story, a little bit of it in each chapter of the book.
And Beth, let me pause there and just talk a little bit about the structure of the book so people can kind of catch up with this piece of the pilgrimage story. So within the book, we'll find snippets of stories from your grandfather and the pilgrimage that he went, the unknown and surprising pilgrimage that he found himself on. And then we'll find that there are some blessings that you offer, some for just everyday noticing, and some for blessings for special occasions. So basically the book weaves us back and forth, like you indicated earlier, between your grandfather's story and the blessings of everyday life and the blessings of special moments in life. Yes. So all through, we get little tidbits of your grandfather.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit more about that pilgrimage story.
Well, sure. Well, he was about 10 years old in 1915, and he had a twin brother named Jack. And Jack had broken his arm, and they had not been able to heal the arm. It was in an awkward place where it couldn't be straightened out and couldn't be bent. And his dad wanted him to go to England to be able to have a surgeon look at that arm. And so that whole family, the two brothers, their little sister, and the parents, took off on a boat from Cape Town, South Africa, to go to England to see a surgeon there. This was right at the beginning of World War I, and so there was this military escort around the boat. And the boat was the Balmoral Castle. It was an ocean liner. Now, there are all these stories about the trip because the parents were seasick, and so there were twin little boys running around this giant boat.
Take a moment to imagine this. You have a huge ocean liner, you have a wide sea, and you have two young boys without parental supervision running around the boat.
For 17 days.
And mischievous boys, no less.
Oh, yes. So they got to know the whole boat, except for this one part of the boat where there was a guard posted. And the story is they kept checking on that part of the boat, and one day the guard wasn't there, and so they went through the door, and they discovered that was where the prison was on the boat.
So that was their great opportunity, and lo and behold, it's prisoners.
Yes, it was prisoners. And they said if you went clear back through all of the cells, there was a porthole in the back of the boat. And if they hoisted each other up, they could get the porthole open and lean out through the porthole. And if they looked down, they could see the propeller of the boat as it went up and down out of the water. And they even said you could, like, get splashed from the water. So they all took a turn hoisting each other up. There were a couple of other little boys that had hooked into their gang, and they leaned out the porthole and saw the propeller and saw the water, and later on got a really good whooping for that. And fortunately, Grandpa was not lost out of the porthole, or I wouldn't be.
I was going to say, or we would have no Beth Richardson. You know, Beth, and I'll tell you a little bit more about this later. We have an online course that will feature Beth's work, and we also have some website links that we'll be sending to you when this webinar is over. And in those, we've got recordings, actual recordings of Grandpa's voice. And so Beth had the wisdom and foresight to, when she was listening to Grandpa tell tales, to tell the tales himself and record them. And so I've had the privilege of listening to Grandpa's voice and hear him talk with this twinkle. You know, even though it's a recording, you can see the twinkle in his eye, talking about leaning out that porthole and being delighted to see the water rushing up and down. And I'm sure his mother thrilled to not have seen that herself.
Exactly. Well, let me tell you a little more of the story. Yeah. So they ended up in England and discovered that the surgeon had been drafted and had gone off to war. And so while they were there, they went to Ireland, which was where Grandpa's mom was from.
Okay.
And they visited there. They went to school. They saw Ireland. They saw the schoolhouse where their mom had gone. And in the meantime, their dad was trying to figure out how to get them back home to South Africa. Because they couldn't travel back to South Africa since England was in the war, and civilians were not able to travel.
So no return home.
No return from there, but they had relatives in Oklahoma.
Oklahoma.
Yeah, they were very global people. His Grandpa's mom's sister lived in Southwest Oklahoma. So they thought, well, we'll just go to the United States and visit them.
And why not?
And then we'll go back home from there. Well, they were waiting in England with tickets for the Lusitania, and the Lusitania was sunk on the way in. And wow, Grandpa
changed their lives.
It did change their lives. So they got the next boat over that they could, and with many of the survivors from the Lusitania. But once they got to the United States, then the U.S. was in the war, and they were stuck in Oklahoma.
So the clay of County Clare became
became the red dirt of Oklahoma.
Of Oklahoma,
Mm-hmm.
which is where you were born, right,
Yep,
Beth?
that's right. I was
Yeah.
born in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You know, Beth, as I have spent time in your book, and I will say it's not a book that you read through. It's a book that you spend time with, and a book that you savor and use for particular occasions. So particular celebrations or prayers that you want to be guided in, prayers for when you are feeling low, and prayers for when you are recognizing the wonder of life. But as I soaked in the history of your grandfather and your heritage, it really awakened in me a desire to learn more about my own heritage.
Yes.
So I think that's one of the great gifts of this book, is that it calls out in us the queries and questions about our own heritage and our own story, and encourages us to notice God's hand, even back as far as we can look into our heritage.
Right. What clay are you made up of?
What clay are all of us made up of?
Yeah.
Yeah. And what does that, what plan and intent does God have for that clay?
How is that clay alive in you today?
Yeah. One of the things I love about your book, and there are many, is your bless to me prayers. We'd like to take a look at some of those particularly, but I'm wondering, the bless to me prayers and then some of the special occasion prayers, how did you go about writing these? How were you acquainted with that form? Tell me a little bit about that, Beth.
So when I started writing blessings as a kind of spiritual practice, I found that a lot of these were coming to me when I was walking the dog. So you see, I think there might be a picture of Jack and Aria. I, at least twice a day, take the dog up the street to the park and back. And Jack is a bit pokey. And so instead of me tugging him along, I started writing prayers. And that section of street is so alive to me. I'm watching right now for when the first clematis at Ace the bird dog's house comes open for bloom, because it's that time of year. I know where the dogs are, and I know the schedule of the people. So these prayers would come to me while I was walking the dog. I might take a picture of the sunrise or of a flower, and that was kind of the origin of noticing this life around me.
Which is so Celtic, is it not? I mean, that's where you're connecting to your County Clare clay and to your, even further back, your Celtic heritage, that practice and habit of noticing, of being connected to the earth, of being aware of everyday events as how God works, with the tools in which God works.
Shall I read to you?
I would love to hear one, Beth.
All right.
Yeah.
This is a blessing called Walking the Dog. Bless to me this walking of the dog. Early in the morning, late at night, we walk to the park and back. Bless to me the silence we share. Me watching, him sniffing, noticing the changes of each day, each season. Bless to me my faithful companion. In him I see the world through different eyes and ears and nose. Bless to me this quiet time, our ritual, our time of prayer, of peace, of love. Bless to me this walking of the dog.
And Jack led you.
Jack did lead me.
Jack led you, as so often our little critters do. The form of that prayer, Beth, the bless to me prayer, seems so simple. So you really could come up with one on the spot, right?
For sure.
You don't have to be a poet or, a known author like Beth A. Richardson. So what if we did one right now?
Sure. It's your turn then.
It is my turn. Yes. I'm thinking, well, truth told, I'm looking at these shortbread biscuits, and I'm saying, bless to me the butter and the sugar and the flour that my grandmother always knew just what to do with, and bless to me her baking skills. How is that?
That is perfect.
So no great writing skills necessary.
No.
Just a grateful heart.
Right.
And an ability to notice. So there are bless to me prayers, but then there are other forms of prayer that you engage in the book. So what about other people who have written prayers like this? Who are some of your sources when you were learning how to write these prayers?
Well, I was informed by a book called the Carmina Gadelica. It was written in
That's another one I'm going to need you to repeat.
Oh, sure. Carmina Gadelica.
Okay, and Gadelica?
G-A-D-E-L-I-C-A.
Okay.
And it was written in the late 1800s by a fellow named Alexander Carmichael, who walked around the highlands of Scotland and recorded the prayers and the blessings from the people there. And then these prayers had been passed down from generation to generation, and he would walk up to a little house and say, do you remember a blessing or a prayer? And he recorded those. You can find the book online. I think we have a spread from that book somewhere, but there's Gaelic on one side and English on the other. And would you like me to read you a prayer from that?
Oh, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
The neat thing about this book is that there are prayers for everything. There's a prayer for a thing called smoring the hearth. You know, they didn't...
Smoring the hearth.
Yeah,
what was
so
that?
That was just making sure that the fire didn't go out overnight.
Okay.
So you pray over the hearth as you bank up the coals so that you don't have to start the fire again in the morning, right? So this is a prayer for a baptism, and it's, let me just read it to you. In the name of God, in the name of Jesus, in the name of Spirit, the perfect three of power, the little drop of the Creator on your little forehead, beloved one. The little drop of the sun on your little forehead, beloved one. The little drop of the Spirit on your little forehead, beloved one, to aid you, to guard you, to shield you, to surround you. That being aware of God's presence in every moment.
And it seems to me, Beth, and I'll speak here from knowing you for probably 10 or 11 years now, these habituated patterns of noticing and being aware, I see you live out. I hear it in your Facebook posts. I hear it in the work that you do here in the upper room. But it seems to me it's an invitation to all of us to notice. As you were reading that particular poem, I could almost sense the drop on my forehead. And what would it be for us to move into practices like this that we were engaging in daily and allowing them to reshape us, so that when we walk down that street like we do every day, if we're walking a dog or we're driving to work, we notice, we see, and we're able to open our eyes in a different way. I had started asking you about other forms of prayer than just the Bless to Me prayer. So what are some of the other prayer types that you introduce us to in Christ Beside Me, Christ Within Me?
The Bless to Me form is the only actual Celtic style that I've picked up on. What I did with the prayers is to start with that Celtic style and in a way to make it my own. And the tie-in, I think, with Celtic prayer is that these blessings are a way to connect with that present moment in prayer, in gratitude, in awe of God's presence in that creation, and aware of the way that God is with me, is with us in whatever is happening right this moment. The book is shaped into 7 chapters that address themes such as going through the day, the blessings, the prayer upon wakening, prayer for the meals, prayer upon going to bed at night, blessings that take us through the seasons of the year, and then
journeying through a year,
and then blessings for events in our lives, like the birth of a baby or a marriage or retirement, first day of school.
The real passages or transitions that we're going through,
So those are some of the kinds of things that are covered in the book.
And too, I'm looking at the table of contents here, Beth, and the poems for struggling times, poems for the grievousness of the world around us. There is something about a simple blessing that invites us into prayer, I think, in a different way. It invites us into expansiveness and into the great spaciousness of God. So when we're coming even into times of struggle or being overwhelmed at what's going on in our world, to come with that posture of gratitude and openness to what God may be doing, that's what I think these prayers invite us to do. And I think that's what you're inviting us to do. And for that, I express gratitude. Blessed to me this Beth, who has written a book that has enriched our lives and enriched my life. So I'm wondering, now that the book is out, and I remember the day when you got your copy, and what a wonderful picture you posted on Facebook that day, where the delight just was shining in your eyes. Now that the book is out, what are you learning about people who are using it? What can you tell us about what you've discovered?
Well, I just can't tell you how excited I am about the book being in your hands. You know, whether it's the paper one or the digital one. And I'm already hearing from people about how you're using the book, and it's exactly what I had wanted. I had an email from someone who had sent the prayer for a new baby to her daughter who was giving birth that day, and the prayer was read over that baby right there in the hospital. And I'm so honored to have those words there. I had a post from a friend who that morning had copied some of the words in a card, sending to someone who had decided not to seek any more treatment for lung cancer. She said, you gave me the words when I didn't know what to say. And that is exactly how I wanted this book to be used. I'm just so grateful. And
so at commemorative events, in cards of greeting or blessing, to restore our own souls when we need quiet and expanse. We're grateful. Many, many ways for us to use this. I'm wondering how you, and we may have touched on this already, how you are hoping other people will use this. We've talked about the baby, and we've talked about commemorative events. Any others that come to mind as you're thinking about how we'll use this?
You know, I guess there's a whole chapter about struggling, and you talked about that a few minutes ago. And at several of these I wrote, several of these prayers I wrote as I saw the struggles of people around me. Shall I share one more?
Please do.
There was a week I was at a retreat, and a friend of mine was in the process of dying, and I was thinking so much about him and his family. And this is a prayer that I wrote called A Holy Pilgrimage. You walk a holy journey you have never walked before, full of tears and gratitude, gentle conversations, silences filled with love. No one knows the way, but you meet each twist and turn with discernment and courage, hope and faith. You walk this pilgrimage in many ways by yourself, but you are never truly alone. Others walk before you, behind you, beside you, surrounding you with love, wrapping you in hope, touching your spirits in peace. You are loved. You are held. You are God's.
Thank you, Beth. And what a great call to all of us to remember that we are held and we are God's and we are loved. Well, our time is coming to a close, and I've just really enjoyed, Beth, hearing you read your poems, read your blessings. I will continue to read and reread these and cherish them and use them in the ways that we've talked about here, in greeting cards or at commemorative events. I'll also be compelled to write my own.
Please.
And I'm sure that your invitation is for others to do that as well.
Yes, if you have a prayer, a blessing that you write, a blessed to me prayer or another blessing, please just send it to me. I'd love to receive those.
And, you know, I wonder if the best blessed to me prayers might just come from Jack.
Oh, my goodness. Well, we do have a sneak preview of the next book that I am working on. Well, actually, Jack is working on it.
So it's a collaborative effort,
yes,
or it's primarily Jack's?
Well, it's a collaborative effort. Jack is working on Jack the Scotty is working on a book of Blessed to Me prayers.
Very good.
Yes. These are Bless me my bowl, Blessed to me my leash, Blessed to me my bath. They are a series of prayers and cartoons, and we may have actually a sneak peek here. There you go. There's one of the cartoons.
Beth is also a talented artist, so there we go. Not only
poetry, not talent, but I mean artist.
I'll grab that as talent. I will call it talent. Friends, in a follow-up email to this webinar, you'll receive several links where you're going to be able to follow Beth. So at Celtic Blessing book, at BethRichardson.com, at JackTheScotty.com, and some YouTube videos. We realize you can't click on these links during our webinar, so that will come to you via email later. But please follow Beth and continue to be delighted and encouraged with what she offers us. And look for Jack's Blessed to Me prayers. We also invite you to order a copy of Beth's book. If you order a paper copy through the Upper Room online bookstore, you're welcome to a 20% discount if you use the coupon code ELEARN, that's capital letters, ELEARN16. And again, this will come to you via email, so don't feel like you have to scurry to write it down. If you purchase a paper copy, there are also ebook, EPUB copies available without that discount. We also are announcing an e-course, an online course that will feature Beth's writing as well as some instruction from her that's in addition to what you'll find in the book, and an opportunity for you to start practicing your own efforts at writing Blessed to Me prayers and noticing prayers and prayers that don't follow that particular form but still call us to be aware of what God is doing in the very humanness of our lives. And so we welcome you to stay tuned with us through those possible mediums. We also have an upcoming webinar where Beth will be featured. This is not until the fall of 2016 in our Soul Feast Favorites series. That's Soul Feast Favorites. And again, no worries about not seeing that on your screen right now. You'll receive an email with information about that yet to come. Well, Beth, despite the ups and downs of this evening, which I think is really in keeping with what a big pilgrimage in a coracle is all about, I want to thank you for gifting us with your presence and with this book and with other books that you've written, but something very special about this one, very, very special, given that we have your story, and we're grateful for that. You know, I'm so speedy to move us along that I am forgetting the people who are partying with us who may have questions for you. So if people were willing to stay, which I think they will be, what do you think? Are you willing to take some questions?
Sure.
Okay.
They're not too hard.
If they're not too hard.
Right.
And we can always give Jack a telephone call and he can help you out.
There you go.
So Scott, help us out. What are some of the questions that have been coming in from folks?
Sure. Thanks, Sharon. Okay, we do have about 3 or 4 questions. So here's the first question. Beth, how aware do you think your grandfather was of his Celtic heritage?
How aware was my grandfather of his Celtic heritage? I think he was very proud of his heritage, both the Irish and the English part. And he also was so grateful to have become an American citizen. You know, he was only 10 when he came here. I'm not sure that he would know how to name his Celtic heritage, but he continued to live that through his gardening and through his closeness to the earth, through crafting things with his hand.
And from much of what I read in your story, Beth, of your grandfather, it was almost beyond intellectual awareness.
Yes.
He simply was exuding and living his heritage.
Yes.
And you were the one that was sort of able to watch that and pick it up and begin to write about it.
That's
so
true.
Maybe not consciously aware, but certainly his life expression was aware. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any others, Scott?
Yes, let's see. The next question, Beth, you've mentioned the Academy for Spiritual Formation. Can you tell me what that is and what it has to do with your Celtic spirituality experience?
Good question.
Sure, that's a great one. So the Academy for Spiritual Formation is a program that is sponsored by the Upper Room, was created by the Upper Room. And there's both a 2-year experience where you go 1 week, 4 times a year over 2 years. And then there are 5-day experiences all over the United States. And so the academy that was the inspiration for this book was one that was a 5-day academy in Alabama, focused on the topic of Celtic spirituality.
And I think also, Beth, the inspiration for one of your issues of Alive Now, is that right?
That is
on
correct.
Blessings?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We ended up actually using this copy, creating this issue of Alive Now to go with that academy.
With the academy. Wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But you'll find 5-day academies on a number of different topics. And then I recommend the academy experience, both the 5-day and the 2-year, for anyone who wants to grow in their relationship with God.
It's an amazing experience. I've been to a 5-day.
Good.
And won't ever forget it, and would go back again if I could right now.
Let's go.
Thanks, Beth. Scott, anything else?
Yes, our final question of the day. Okay, this is for Beth again. For those of us who have a hard time trusting that God is good and present in our everyday lives, what help can you offer in even trying to establish these practices of noticing and blessing?
Oh, we're ending on a challenging one.
No, we are. Oh, my goodness. Well, you know, I have found that, and I guess there's some folks that feel like that God is in terrible things that happen, and I don't believe that. I don't believe that God is in tragedy as in having caused something or having preordained that something would happen, but God is there with us in our struggles. God is there with us in our tears. God weeps for us when we are grieving. God sits with us and surrounds us in love when we are hurting.
And that issue of trust, Beth, again, the way the poems and the blessings are written in this book, in my opinion, invite us to trust. Invite us to a very gentle and rhythmic and not hurried invitation to trust and to see God maybe in a way that we hadn't seen God before, maybe to shift our perspective or our lens a little bit. Is that fair?
Yeah, and to realize that sometimes we can't trust, that we can't trust that God is really there, and to know that there are people who love you, who are surrounding you, and who are helping trust on your behalf, and who are the hands and the skin, the heart, the voice of God there with you, even when you can't feel the God that we can't see.
And in light of that, I will attest to Beth being one of those people that when I am in your presence, when we are around you, Beth, we sense the presence of God's inviting and gracious spirit. And I am certain that in some way, shape, or form that comes out through cyberspace and into our homes as we watch these videos or as we join in live. There are people in this world who are full of the love and the light of God, and all of us are invited to be full of the love and the light of God. And so we encourage you to find practices that help you to shed what would inhibit you from being at ease and open in God's light and love. So Beth, as a farewell reminder, the email that we will send out to you following this event will include all sorts of links One of them will be links to video where Beth offers spoken and sung versions of some of the blessing and other prayers that she has in Christ beside me, Christ within me. So I encourage you to spend some time enjoying those. Jack the Scotty will bring you lots of laughs. And any information that you're looking for on further Upper Room online courses are available as well at elearning.upperroom.org. Beth, anything you'd like to say in farewell before we turn this back over to Scott?
Well, I just want to say thank you all for being here. I just feel so much gratitude that you would come to this party with me to help celebrate this book. And I want to thank Paul Schotskin, who took this incredible photograph in Scotland, and for Sharon and for Tom, who you can't see, and for all the other folks who helped to create the book and create this time that we could be together. Thank you for being here. You have touched my heart.